Gentlemen, you're watching GEEKCASTER. You're watching GEEKCASTER, everything sci-fi, fantasy, and geek culture. I'm Michael 7 Michael, and today we have in the studio
Dayveonne, Bussey,
Corey Davis.
Kendrick Gray, the dreadlock blur. What's poppin'?
Yes, geek culture. Hey, we're talking about the Batman. All right, this is part 2 of our conversation of the Batman. If you want to see the other part, you can find it on IG, and you could also go to geekcaster.com and find our YouTube link for that stuff. If you're watching us on cable, thank you for joining us for another edition of GeekCaster. So I agree with the last statement that Kendrick just made in part 1 of this conversation, where Hush should have had his own film, because that's such a great, complex character. Hush knows the true identity of Bruce Wayne, so, i.e. Batman. So I think that would have been really great to play with that. And near the end, that's why I was like, whoa, maybe he's not the Riddler. That would have been interesting, psyched everybody out. Also, Hush is willing to do what needs to be done.
Right.
Riddler, he knows what needs to be done, but he gets everyone else to do it. He's not the violent type. He's not going to take a wrench and bash your brains out, but he'll get someone else to do it. You know, he's the orchestrator, you know, which is interesting because the Joker is kind of like a cross between the two in a way, where he'll get the job done or he'll manipulate other people to do it. But he's not going to wait for someone to do it.
I want to play a game.
You know, so when they had the multiple, I guess, Hush characters, that was interesting, because it seemed almost like he had all these fanboys that were willing to do whatever the Riddler wanted. I mean, there's so many ways they could have played with it, and I feel that they dropped the ball on that. Just to add in the Penguin, which was great acting and everything, but it wasn't necessary because you had so much good material to work with. You didn't really need to do that.
I don't know. Like everyone's saying, this is still early. There's still world building. So I thought it was decent. And there were 2 things that I wanted to address. Like the final scene in the jail cell between Batman and the Riddler. Mm-hmm. It was, if you pay attention to their wording, Batman thought that he knew his identity, which he didn't. Right. And so once he won that, I think that was like the little separation between this isn't Hush, it's just the Riddler. Right. So I think the next few movies, the Riddler could morph into Hush. And so I think they were just putting building blocks for the Riddler to become Hush in later movies. I think that's going to happen.
Or because we had all those minions trying to be like the fake Riddler, one of them could go off and be Hush. But then it wouldn't, again, we're totally making a departure from the history of Hush. Right. For those that don't know, the comic book version, history of Hush, grew up with Bruce. Well, he was friends with Bruce as a kid.
Yeah.
Lost everything, like Bruce lost everything, but he lost everything, gained everything. You know, actually, Hush actually killed his mom. He killed her, yeah. So he wanted to have all the things that Bruce had. Yeah. You know, he looked at Bruce as like the lucky one. So it was interesting that I don't know, I think if they try to rebound and create a Hush, I guess we would have to let go of the lore. We would just have to let go because it wouldn't make sense. It was a perfect script, overall idea, if they actually used Hush. And we don't know 100% if he doesn't know he's Batman.
That's the other thing also.
Yeah, because the way he played with it, Bruce, right?
Bruce.
Right, you know, that thing is like...
So no, he just kept saying Bruce or Bruce Wayne?
I think he said Bruce Wayne. But as far as I
he said Bruce Wayne.
But he said it slow.
He didn't know that Bruce Wayne could have been Batman. He was saying that all roads led to Bruce Wayne. And so when they had their final conversation, I forget exactly what he said. And that's when you can see Batman look up at him like, oh, so he doesn't know. And then that's when he started like berating him. And I thought that they added that autism element to the Riddler. I thought that was genius and pretty good.
Yeah.
When he started freaking out because that wasn't what he saw, he thought that the Batman would have agreed with him.
Right.
But you can see, like, that's what I'm saying, the little.
I mean, they played with us with that. I mean, it was an interesting dance because also the Riddler's really, of course, we go with the lore. He's really smart. So if that was his last bargaining chip, if he really knew, he would be smart enough to play with him and not spill the beans. Just like because if he's supposed to be both Hush and Riddler put together, Hush knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but doesn't ever say it. And he befriends some of the other villains, but he keeps that in his pocket.
Which is why now we have him being friends with the Joker. So that's why I'm like, I think they're building towards Hush actually making a full appearance.
Interesting. Well, what do you guys think? You think that's possible? Or they missed the boat on that?
I think there's still a high possibility, and more specifically, I think there's a high possibility that Thomas Elliott will show up. I mean, if we're going to be honest here, aside from the Gotham TV series, Thomas Elliott isn't really mentioned in a lot of other things. I think he might have, in fact, aside from the Batman Hush animated movie, where Thomas Elliott was in there, but if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I wasn't, but I believe he was killed in that movie. I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Thomas Elliott was killed in the movie, so that nixed that. So, I mean, the animated movie was the only movie where they meshed the Riddler and Hush into one character. I mean, I thought it was weird because, again, we all know that Thomas Elliott was always Hush. That was always the thing, even in the graphic novel. But I don't think it's still out of the realm of possibility because, considering the fact that, and I'm probably the only one that felt like this was an interesting twist, because you figure they caught the Riddler, so it's over with, right? But I'm going to find out. And again, I even said in the movie that he's out here making content creators look bad because now he has a cult. So he has a cult out here getting ready to,
about right. Sounds about right.
Getting ready to enact terroristic type of things. And so I'm like, oh, snap. So this is where they're going with this. So, it could be where, and it's like you said, Hush was a character that pretty much befriended a lot of Batman's rogues gallery. So it could. I mean, and this is me, the writer, in me. I'm like, if they really want to, they could really have it. Whereas, like Thomas Elliott is a person who studied what the Riddler did and decided to take it even a step further, as opposed to just killing all the people that he deemed corrupt. He would rally the villains in this new Batman universe, and there will be your new Hush story.
Now I'm going to say something that I really wish they did this. It had to have been part of the conversation, but maybe they thought it was too complicated and leave it for another one. By the road they were traveling, it leads us to the Order of the Owls. Right? And they haven't 100% cemented Wayne's attitude and or his moral compass. At the end, they definitely cleared things up with a little bit with he just wanted to protect your mother because she's from the nut house, which that was a very interesting direction to put it. His mom was crazy, but then that would lead to why he has a chemical imbalance and wanted to be vengeance. Because remember, Batman's a little off.
Yeah.
Let's just be real. A little off.
It's actually very interesting because this movie isn't the first like piece of fiction to kind of play around with the origins of like Thomas and Martha Wayne, or at least their backstory. You know, every movie we've gotten has always painted the Waynes as like this philanthropic, you know, giving husband and wife. You know, they're always giving back to the city.
Right.
You know, Joker kind of alluded to this idea, like the fact that they made, you know, Thomas Wayne more of a politician, I thought was interesting because not that many other stories do that.
Right.
You know, and I just felt like, you know, the Batman kind of continuing that idea, I thought was pretty interesting too. I was like, to see that Thomas Wayne was like running for public office, I'm like, that's actually not a bad way to go.
No.
You know, and you know, and then like even like, you know, changing little like the little instances with, you know, Falcone and Thomas Wayne's interaction, you know, because again, in The Long Halloween, you know, the story about Thomas Wayne saving Falcone's life, you know, that's in the comics. That exists, you know. But for them to take a different route in this, I thought was actually really cool too. So, I mean, I kind of wanted to jump back in some of the things I'd be like. That was actually one of the things I actually really enjoyed. The fact that, you know, it's painting the Waynes is like and not such a bright light. You know, everything else does. So it's like when people, and then like this is like the scene in the movie where it's like, I guess the new person who was running for mayor of Gotham was like, you know, Bruce, there's so much you can be doing for this, so much more you could be doing for the city. And it's like you said, Bruce is crazy. Like, let's be real here. Bruce Wayne is clinically insane. All right. You know, we just let him get away with it because he got money and stuff. But yeah.
And the brooding, you know, let's make a transition to Bruce Wayne. They did not deliver a Bruce Wayne.
No.
And
I
think that was I think that was the intention. They wanted us to focus more on the Batman more than we did with Bruce Wayne. Because if you look at every single Batman we had, it was a balance between Bruce Wayne balancing Batman, but not Batman balancing Bruce Wayne.
I mean, come to think of it, even if we look back at the Dark Knight trilogy, we definitely got a lot more Bruce Wayne than we did Batman. You know, and even with like, you know, the older movies, you know, like the Keaton Batman movies, you know, it was a fair amount between the two.
I think that was the only Batman that had a balance.
Right.
That was the only one, because Val Kilmer, even though well played, they went into the psychology just like this movie tried to do.
Yeah.
But they had too much going on. They had Hush, they had the Penguin, they had the Catwoman. Like, if you're gonna go there, do it. Do it on the very first one. Let's see it, let's enjoy it, and then move on. But they didn't really do that. I hear what you're saying, Dayveonne, but I would disagree. Because they only gave us Batman. There was no Bruce Wayne. Because Batman is vengeance, he's upset, he's moody, he's emotional, in a silent aggression emotional, but they didn't give us the split personality. Right. And to have Batman, to have a Batman film, you have to have the split personality. This is why we love Joker so much, and this is why we love Batman. They're supposed to be complete mirrors of each other, and they didn't give us that. And the fact that they had another major villain, but they wanted to incorporate almost like a Silence of the Lamb thing, I actually thought that was kind of brilliant, because it could have showed us that mirror a little bit in a way, and they didn't do that. So, or at least publicly, like what was it? The Batman that Kendrick just mentioned. What was it?
Christian Bale.
The Christian Bale, right? At least they showed us the scenes where he's showing up at the Playboy with the two girls, and because that's what Batman's supposed to be, that eligible bachelor that you wouldn't think for a second. But if he's like this all the time, and then he shows up at a funeral. I mean, it's
But
like
that's the whole thing. He's young and he's still got a chip on his shoulder, so he's operating in like this. Because they even said he has trained himself to stay up all night and just do these weird things. So he's not Bruce Wayne that we know. He's still a young, impressionable male trying to figure out what he wants to do and how he wants to be shown in the city. So we haven't gotten that dynamic yet, but I believe that it is coming with how Matt Reeves has handled this version of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
what do you guys feel about him fall in love with the Catwoman? I just feel he's very accessible. I guess the excuse is the young thing.
Yeah.
That he's young and I guess I don't know.
Well, I said this last time we talked about it, the first time when we talked about the shows, their dynamic and how they understand each other because they're both two different people living dual personalities. So they see each other in a certain crazy way, kind of like Harley Quinn and Joker kind of see each other. I like that aspect of it, but they didn't go as far as delivering a Catwoman Selena Kyle duality like we wanted to see a Bruce Wayne Batman duality. So they laid too many breadcrumbs, like you're saying. That's why I don't think the deleted scene would have fit because it's just too much going on. But world building, I'm expecting to see more of them interacting and figuring each other out, both as Catwoman, Batman, and Selena Kyle, Bruce Wayne.
You actually had a very interesting point about the world building, but the fact that it seemed like there was a lot going on in this movie. I'd even said, I said coming out of the movie theater, like, while I enjoyed the movie,
Right.
I feel like at the very least 30 minutes could have been shaved off.
Thank you.
30 minutes worth of material could have been shaved completely off of this movie, and it still would have been fine. Like, I'm not saying that he tried to cram too much into this movie, but like, it felt like there was a lot of moving parts and certain things that could have, like, it is like you said, like, a lot of the Selena Kyle stuff, while it's great, I don't think we needed to dive in too much of that, especially considering the fact that, again, spoilers, that she leaves at the end.
Bruce, I
Like,
just gotta go my way, okay? You can
like,
stay in
it would have been
Gotham.
like, it would have been one thing, like, if she was like, either she was going to stick around for a minute,
impressed with my little bicycle? No.
But like the fact that like she just kind of takes off at the end, so it's just like, and I don't have anything necessarily wrong. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with her taking off at the end. In fact, it's pretty cool because at least it sets up for her to come back. Maybe not in the second movie. Like, if we get like a third installment into this Batman universe, she can come back in the third movie. Because at this point right now, there's not really anything left for her in Gotham, which he even said, so she has to go take off. Maybe she hones her skills as a cat burglar and stuff, because in this instance, she wasn't really a cat burglar.
Right.
She wasn't even Catwoman.
Yeah. So, there's that. Yeah. So maybe she goes off. Maybe she does her own type of Batman thing where she goes and discovers her Catwoman persona, which
if she does
makes
come
sense.
back, I want them to be mortal enemies. Like, she's doing something and he's like, I have to stop you. Like, you could try. Like, they gotta like not get along.
No, because it's already established that, that comfortability. So it's pretty much going to be more a seduction type setup where she does something to lure him in and then he does something to bring her to help him.
That would not be interesting at all.
I want to see, because he already knows she's Selena Kyle. But I want Bruce Wayne to meet Catwoman, and then I want them to figure out each other, like they both have dual personalities. I want to see that happen. I think that.
The reason why I said Dayveonne, because one good thing, even though they drew it out, and I understand why they're doing that. I mean, they want to have the romance, they want to have and we do know that is part of the lore of Catwoman and Batman. But at least they didn't go any further, because again, he's trying to establish himself and figure things out. And Batman's a loner. Batman doesn't trust anyone, So this is what makes that kind of. I mean, they tried to do it, but in a very cartoony way with Michael Keaton and who
Michelle Pfeiffer.
And Michelle Pfeiffer. Even though it was more of a hokey version of Batman because it was very cartoony, that made more sense. Like they're supposed to kind of like each other but hate each other because we're against the morals are different.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right, so
yeah. I was gonna say like the Catwoman Batman dynamic has changed a great deal over the years. Like, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the comic books and stuff, but like, even in the comic books, it's like they've kind of established that like, she's not an outright villain anymore.
Right.
Like, she's like an anti-hero at this point right now.
Right.
So like the comic books have done it, even the games have done it. They was said that Catwoman kind of like she does her own thing, but
and I think that's kind of bad. Do you think that's a good thing, Kendrick, or like what's your?
I mean,
I hate antiheroes.
see, the way I look at it is like this: like if it, I'm all about if it makes sense and if it fits into the story. Because if it does, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
that's pretty much how I look at it. Because like, how many superheroes have anti-hero allies? I mean, like, that's what you got to think about. How many superheroes have anti-hero allies? Deadpool, for what it's worth, is an anti-hero.
Yeah, but he's always been like the biggest anti-hero.
Like that's how he's written. He's written as anti-hero. Venom is an anti-hero. So it's like at certain point.
No, go ahead.
I'm saying I think at certain points, just certain characters, I guess they gain too much popularity that they become. It's like like we can't keep this person the villain forever. Like even though a lot of people really enjoy villains, like I'm no exception either. I enjoy villains as much as the next person, but I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, and especially in a world like superheroes, it probably doesn't hurt to connect with someone who is almost kind of like you, like just from the other side of the tracks. That's all, and that's all Catwoman is. She's from the other side of the tracks,
right? And but why?
I think. I mean, for what it's worth, the Dark Knight Rises version of Catwoman, even though they didn't call her Catwoman, I enjoyed that. I enjoy their dynamic in that movie. Like especially a lot of their conversations and stuff. Like I really just realized like Batman and Catwoman never actually fought in the Dark Knight Rises, which is kind of funny. But I don't know. That's just the way I look at it. Like I feel like there's nothing wrong with like her being an anti-hero, and I know there's a lot of people like you said that don't like anti-heroes. Like me, I'm cool with it.
And Dayveonne, do you like anti-heroes or what's your take?
Yes, I'm a huge Deadpool fan, as you know. But it depends on the popularity of the person. Can people relate to the character, understand the character? And when it comes to heroes joining forces with these anti-heroes, it's more a combined force into knowing each other and working together and to a common goal. Like you're gonna need an anti-hero because y'all after the same individual. So look at all the Spider-Man villains. How many times Spider-Man villains had turned anti-heroes? You gotta look at Venom. You gotta look at Morpheus. Am I saying it right? Morpheus.
What is it?
Morpheus.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. What other villain that Spider-Man was with? Lizard. How many times Spider-Man teamed up with Lizard?
I don't like it, especially with Catwoman, and I noticed that change. Kendrick, that is a very interesting thing. They have changed Catwoman over the years, but it's the same thing how they teetered with Harley Quinn, because some sometimes they kind of push her character where there's like, she's, instead of the anti-hero, she's like the anti-villain, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's just laziness. It's taking representation but doing it in a bad way, where instead of killing the character, create another character to represent.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like, oh, now we're going to make Joker an anti-hero. No, we love him as a villain. And I love Catwoman as a villain. Let her be a villain. You can make more characters.
I got to interject on that one, because it's not about how you feel. It's all about how the majority feels.
No. I'm not talking about...
I'm just saying that...
No. I'm saying from a producing, writing, like the comic book company standpoint, that they made those decisions just to fit, in my opinion, to fit certain circles, certain boxes, just because of the times, rather than create another character. It's kind of like, okay, now we're going to do the black Superman. Why don't you create another character? You don't have to keep changing. That's what I'm talking about. Like if you love Batman, now he's no longer a detective. He's, I don't know, fill in the blank. No, just create something else. That's what I mean. People are going to react towards whatever you put out. I'm not talking about after the fact. I'm talking about their decision to change just to fit the times. Does that make sense?
Right. And this is what I was going to say. I kind of feel like, and this is what I hope Matt Reeves does, I wish they make Catwoman a superhero, because I would like to see her as Batman's sidekick. And I think that's kind of what the glimpse that we got. I think we got that.
Hold on, Corey. Let Dayveonne respond, because I did say something to his thing. I mean,
no, I'm going completely off topic. I'm leaving your point alone. I'm just saying what I want with Catwoman, because if we're talking about world building and what we want with the character, instead of being an anti-hero, just make her a sidekick, because he already gave us a little bit of that element. I hope that's where he goes with it.
Let Dayveonne respond to my response to Dayveonne.
Alright, so I kind of lost after Corey did that.
Because Michael made his point. Like, why are we going to beat that point to the ground? Like, that's the fair point.
That's the point, but I want to know what Dayveonne, because I'm reacting to what Dayveonne.
Because I was stating the fact that it's just the fact that, like, it's all about popularity. If the fans love that particular character, whether they're a villain, they're going to try their best to basically say, look, we love this character. Is there a way we could kind of tweak them a little bit? Because if this person is getting such a boost in popularity in the comic community and cosplay community, of course they're going to tweak it a little bit. Look at, like you said, Harley Quinn, perfect example. You don't see nobody else dressing up as... Not that many people dressing up as Wonder Woman. You don't have that many people dressing up as Vixen. You don't have that many people dressing up as some of the superhero characters. You see them dressing up as either villains or anti-heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Harley Quinn is one of those anti-heroes. They like Venom Gwen more than they like actual Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they like Catwoman. But they could see her as an anti-hero, because what? She only steals, but she does fight crime.
Kendrick, what do you think on that? You think they should keep changing the characters or stay true to it, or what's your take on all that? Yeah.
I mean, as far as like,
have the last word, because we're running out of time.
As far as like changing characters up,
you got 5 seconds.
Again, it's one of those things where it has to fit the narrative. Like, I'm not for changing a character up if it doesn't make any sense. Like, it has to make sense to not only the writers, but to the readers. That's my thing.
And that's the end of this episode, because we have a strict time with cable. Thank you so much for watching GEEKCASTER. Thank you, guys. Leave some comments, because it's juicy. Yes, sir.